Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Weekly Academics, and you are listening to Faiza Inamdar. And now that we are in the part 4 of First War of Independence, and this is a long part, so I won't take much time. So after having done political causes, economic causes, social and religious causes, here we are into the military causes of the First War of Independence or the War of 1857. And this one includes the immediate cause to the war also. So this is a very important part. As I always say, questions have been asked on this part also. Latest paper in which a question was asked on this was the 2016 history paper. So without wasting much time, let's dive into it. Number 1, low salary and poor prospects of promotion. So again, everything comes out of the deep-rooted feeling of superiority that the Englishmen had, which I've mentioned in all the other 3 parts also. Here also that comes into picture. So in case of the army, all the high ranks of the army were reserved for the Englishmen, for the British only. No Indian could rise to those levels. And the Indian native sepoys, they could not rise above the ranks of a Rizaldar or a Subedar. These are very low ranks if you see. But the Indian native sepoys could not rise above these ranks. And even at these ranks, even if considering that they are at the maximum rank possible for them, and they're very good at what they do, their maximum pay, or to take it the maximum pay of a Subedar, of an infantry, was less than the minimum pay of a new English recruit, just a person who just entered. Even he got more payment if he was an Englishman. So you see the amount of discrimination over here? That was what affected the sepoys' morale naturally, okay? This is the number 1 thing. Number 2, the faulty distribution of the troops. Now the troops throughout the country, there is Indian native sepoys and then there are British troops, okay? So there was a disproportionate distribution of these troops, okay? So in major cities like Delhi, Allahabad, there were all Indian soldiers, Indian sepoys, no British armies were there. And these were like very important places, central locations. And in that period of time, Britain was involved in a lot of wars outside India. For example, like the Persian War and the Chinese War. They were involved in these wars, and at that time, the English soldiers could realize that right now British are in difficulty and we can strike them right now. They are not as strong as they would be otherwise because their revenue, their money, their economy is not very stable because they are engaged in wars. And all the major cities like Delhi and Allahabad were completely in the hands of the English native sepoys. That was the faulty distribution of troops. Moving on to the next. Disproportion between the British and Indian troops. Somewhat related to the previous point, but this is more about the number of English troops and the number of the Indian sepoys. So in the company's troop overall, there were 233,000 of Indians and only 45,322 British soldiers. So about this, Lord Dalhousie, he had mentioned it to the English company, to the authorities, that we should be deploying more British soldiers, but he did not achieve what he wanted. And this also gave the Englishmen, who were who outnumbered the British, more strength and more courage, and the thought that they could strike the British, that they could win against the British. Okay. Now, the 4th reason is the defeat in the Afghan war or loss of prestige in the Afghan war. Again, somewhat related. So in the first Afghan war, it was a complete failure for the British because they lost, they were defeated. Also, there was a lot of human loss, material loss, economic loss, money wastage, everything, and the weakness of the British was completely exposed. So the Indian soldiers who outnumbered the British, who were also in the main cities of the country, completely realized, and their self-confidence increased, and now they knew that they could strike the British. They knew that they could challenge the British and they could probably win. That was one more cause. Now, the 5th cause is the social distance between the British officers and the Indian soldiers. So again, as I say, the deep-rooted feeling of superiority that the British company men had, and even obviously the army men had. So the British officers treated the soldiers to be menial servants. Whereas these soldiers were actually very skilled, very talented, very skilled in their work. They had helped the British conquer various kingdoms. They had helped them conquer Punjab very recently, that is in 1848. They had helped them conquer Punjab, and they had helped them take down various kingdoms and conquer various lands. They were very skilled, but the British officers did not respect that. There were certain proclamations also of the Great Revolt, and one of them said, and I quote, "What has been the return for the blood that we shed? Only that the British spoiled our people and degraded our princes." So these kind of proclamations are there. So from this statement, you can understand what situation is there. That's the fifth reason: social distance between British officers and Indian soldiers. Moving on to the sixth: discontent and dissatisfaction in the Bengal army. Now, first of all, when we say Bengal army, it does not mean the army of Bengal. It is a misnomer actually, and this army consisted of sepoys, which were majorly high caste Hindus of Awadh, like the Brahmins or the Rajputs from Awadh. And as I mentioned the Afghan war earlier, so during the Anglo-Afghan war in 1839 to 1842, these sepoys of the Bengal army were asked to cross the river Indus, which they then called Sindhu, and go on the other side to fight. And again, a religious aspect, as I say, people then took a lot of pride in their religion. These Brahmins, these Hindus, they considered that sea voyages were forbidden in the religion, and therefore they did not really like going across the river and fighting there. So what they did in 1844, some Bengal regiment refused to serve in the Sindh till extra allowances were given to them. So they found out the weak points of Britishers, and they were starting to strike over there. Okay, moving on to the seventh reason, which is again a bit related to the previous one, that is the General Service Enlistment Act. So this General Service Enlistment Act, it was passed in 1856, so you see very recently, and this act said that all recruits to the Bengal army should be ready for service everywhere, whether within or outside the country. Okay, so as I said, they had this religious factor that sea voyages are forbidden. So the Bengal army did not really like this. They considered it to be a great alarm, and it enraged them. It was a fueling factor in the war, the General Service Enlistment Act. Okay, now finally the eighth cause, and a question on this particular cause was asked in the 2018 exam also. This is the immediate cause, which is the introduction of the Enfield rifle. Now, earlier they used to use the brown base guns. Okay, old iron-made brown base guns were used earlier, but in this particular period of time, just before the War of 1857, new rifles were introduced, that is the Enfield rifle. And there were rumors that the cartridge of this Enfield rifle was greased with the fat of cows and pigs. Now, as you all know, cows are considered to be sacred by Hindus and pigs are considered to be impure, unclean by the Muslims. So both major communities were alarmed by this. And this was true. It spread across like a wildfire throughout the country, and this affected the people a lot. The whole Bengal army was seized with panic because of this, and this was one major reason. How it was the immediate cause is because Mangal Pandey was the one who revolted against this when he was posted in Barakpur on the 29th March 1857. He refused to use that cartridge because he considered it to be sacred, and that is the point which triggered the war as a whole. Okay, that is the point, the introduction of Enfield rifle. So just a quick recap, quickly I'll go through it. Low salary, poor prospectus of promotion, faulty distribution of troops, disproportion between Indian and British troops, social distance between the British officers and Indian soldiers, discontent and dissatisfaction in the Bengal army, the loss of prestige in Afghan war, General Service Enlistment Act of 1856, and the introduction of Enfield rifle. That's the immediate cause. So these are the military causes, which includes the immediate cause. And with this, we are done with the causes for the First War of Independence. And I'll get back to you with the consequences of this war, which is going to be a longer podcast. I'll tell you that right now. Until then, to listen to something soothing, something beautiful, you can always go to Your Life in My Voice. If you have Any doubts, you can feel free to put it in the comments section or DM me at weekly.academics. And also like the podcast, share it with all your friends, help out all your friends. And for continuous updates and to find all the podcasts on history, geography, you can follow me on YouTube. Bye bye. Take care. Be healthy.